And that was a small note that my father smuggled to my mother when he was 4 murder cases, one of them another terrorism case for trying to blow up the Punjab Assembly. And he was like, "यार मैं कितने cases में बचूंगा ये मुझे they're trying to kill me. They will succeed." So when I tell you that my father's assassination kind of broke my family.
लेकिन ये नॉर्मल इंसान को कभी नहीं समझ आ सकती कि आप एक एंटरप्रेन्योरियल वेंचर चलाते हुए किस तरह सर्व कर सकते हो लोगों को और अपनी कंट्री को.
Their cash comes from you. They're bankrupt. The government of Pakistan is bankrupt. The bureaucracy of Pakistan is bankrupt. The judiciary of Pakistan is bankrupt. They function on the money of businessmen and entrepreneurs. Everybody said it's over. And you need to leave this country. Because it's not just that your businesses are finished, you'll be finished as well. And then imagine I was kidnapped. Now or body. And she just turned to him and she said, "Put my son on the phone." She said, "No one will touch you. I've left you in God's hand. Now give him the phone." And then she told him, she's like, "It'll be body for body. You touch my son and you'll take your friends' bodies as well." That's the first. My abduction and my torture and these series of very unfortunate events made me a better person.
Assalamu alaikum all, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the LUMS Policy Research Initiatives podcast. I am Mustafa, joined by my co-host Tabish today here, and we have the absolute honor to host Mr. Shahbaz Taseer today at our first podcast. Mr. Taseer's journey is nothing short of remarkable, I would say, and he has emerged as a symbol of resilience and hope after spending 5 years in terrorist captivity. So we'll be talking about his time as a captive, and then we'll be discussing some details that he mentioned in his book that he just wrote. So, Shahbaz, kaise hain?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me, guys.
It's an honor to have you today on our very first podcast. Starting off with a special guest.
But it's an honor for me actually that you guys always think of me. And I've worked with your department of research and policy. I've spoken to the kids as well, and I just the reason that I love speaking to you guys is because I think you're some of the most intelligent and smartest kids in Pakistan right now, and possibly even the world. So I can't wait to snap you up as soon as you enter the workforce.
Yeah. So let's just dive right into the questions that I have some in mind. First question is, so I've always, whenever I see your podcast with some other creators, and even when I was reading your book, one of the questions that came to my mind, how when all this happened and you all of a sudden gone, how did the Taseer family cope up with all of that? Because I keep thinking it's year 2011, the family is doing well, the business is going well, the head of the family is the governor of Punjab. And it all seems like a बहुत अच्छे से family running, and all of a sudden Mr. Salman Taseer gets assassinated, and then a couple of months after that you get kidnapped. I always thought what would be going on in your mom's at that time. I think we should at some time get her on a podcast as well.
Yeah.
Because
actually, sorry to cut you, but the more that I've spoken on different forums and podcasts, everyone has said this to me.
Yes. Because I feel like
we should get your mother on.
Yes.
And then finish your question and I'll tell you.
Yeah, because I keep thinking at the same time, there's this grief period going on. Her husband died, and then a couple of months after that, you disappear, and then she's basically forced to watch those videos of you being tortured, and then, I saw you saying somewhere that he different messages in those videos, so she had to watch those videos in the entirety. So how was that? And well, mother for sure primary concern to unka hoga, but as a family, how did they back home cope up with it?
It's really funny. I think no one has ever asked this. So it's a very difficult question to answer because Alhamdulillah, one of the most amazing things that has happened to me, or that I'm very lucky that has happened to me, is that it taught me lessons, and whenever I look at this, I look at it as an experience, and I'll tell you why. And I've said this before, that if you ever look at any tragedy as an experience or as a pedestal to step on and learn something,
Yes.
It's not a handicap, it's not a disability. You'll grow, and growth can not be bad for you. And when there are things in your life, personal tragedies in your life, if you overcome them, this doesn't require bravery or resilience. It requires, I think, patience and faith and support. Then you also become a stronger person, and you become more capable of dealing with issues. The reason that I'm telling you this is because, yes, there was maybe an image that in 2011, my father is the governor, everything is smooth. And that's how it should be in Pakistan, technically, if your father is the governor. But it was very difficult because my father absolutely refused to entertain anyone from his companies. And my brother and I were pretty much on our own. He was very categoric about the fact that this position will not benefit anyone. One of his principles in life was that some of the oaths that I take mean something to me. In 2008, my father became governor in 2007, and in 2008, I think the world was hit by possibly one of the worst recessions that anyone who was in the workforce at that time had seen. And especially in Pakistan, we were wiped out. Cash was wiped out, and we had seen a very good time under Pervez Musharraf's government. So my first training was dealing with debt. We are real estate developers. We had brokerage companies, financial services, and one of the mechanisms that makes companies like that work is debt, commercial debt from banks. And so, anyways, that was a huge burden on the company, and with the governor refusing to ever accommodate it, was a difficult learning cycle. But when you're in this world, nothing is ever easy. Even when you accomplish one thing, something else opens. It's a continuous cycle. What nobody expects in these cycles, because you're trained from school to university, and then your internships, and then your workforce, and then you're promoted, and then there's a very normal method that you can see across companies. It's a normal trend of growth. What no company or no workforce of a company ever expects is that suddenly the founder is murdered, and sort of everyone around the company has instead of being various pillars of support, have become like hyenas trying to consume whatever is left. And there's no training for that, unfortunately. And so we were kind of thrown into the abyss, very young. I think
that was the kind of time जिसमें आपकी ज़रूरत family को सबसे ज़्यादा होगी.
Yeah, I'm the older one of my father and mother's children, and I was at the time the only one who worked with my dad. My brother had also worked with him, but वो मेरे से छोटा है, तो उसको शायद 1-2 साल हुए थे, मुझे 2-3 साल हुए थे, तो फर्क इतना नहीं था. मगर हाँ, वो एक बड़े भाई के ऊपर एक वो हो जाता है ना, बड़ा भाई. And obviously the way that we lost our father, there was an emotional toll that had as well. So when I tell you that my father's assassination kind of broke my family, that's real in terms of however you look at it. And then the circumstances that my brother and I had to deal with as well, it was difficult, because there's one thing doing damage control, and then there's another thing fighting hyenas. Yes. Unfortunately, the only kind of animal that can fight a hyena is a lion. And I'm not saying that we're lions, but you just have to find a means and a method to survive. And it was very, very difficult. And as I would say, we were kind of getting a grip on things in the 6-7 months after my father's murder, I was gone. And I wish I could tell you what kind of a setback that was. The reason I was telling you that I'm very blessed that none of this has made a difference to me, and I look at it as an experience. these are my strengths, but the one thing that I can never forgive myself is what I put my mother through. And she always she says that that you never put me through anything. You went through something yourself, and Allah sent you back to me, and I think that's very brave. But that watching, I have a son and I have two sons and a daughter. But my son got typhoid, and I was in and out of the hospital, and I was watching him struggle, and it's very difficult as a father or as a mother to see your child struggle. And I was very upset, and I remember I was having some issues as well with my daughter, and I was a bit upset, and I turned around and I said to my mother that nobody will understand what I'm going through. And without breaking an expression, she just put her arm over me and she said, I understand what you're going through. And she's an incredibly strong woman. She was a housewife, by the way. She has no training in business, but when my father became governor, one of the things that he did was he made her his chairman, and he made my brother and myself his CEOs, or his arms to operate. And so she kind of got into this in 2007, but as a chairman, with two sons who were working for her. Strategy and execution of strategy was not her forte. For example, my father would conceive and execute, and the executioners, as we like to joke in this office, were my brother and I, and his team, and still our team, and that's how we work. So she came in 2011 into a company that was breaking. People were leaving, banks were attacking, and I work with banks now, and a lot of them have been very supportive as well. But at that time, when things are falling apart, everybody looks at their own interest. Clients looked at their own interest, business partners looked at their own interests, but she held everyone together. And she took something that should have been finished. And if you went to anyone in 2011, and we worked with a lot of people, we worked with a lot of advisors, we worked with international advisors, local advisors, my parents' friends, family, everybody said it's over. And you need to leave this country, because it's not just that your businesses are finished, you'll be finished as well. And then imagine I was kidnapped. And by the way, I have a picture, sorry, I thought it was my phone. I have a picture of my sister on the first Women's Day after my kidnapping, where she gave a speech, and she said that everything that has happened to my family has only made our resolve stronger to serve this country. And so these are the kind of women that I work for and with. And they have really, I wish I could explain to you, everything that happens in our lives now, all the success that we enjoy today, whether it's even the success of my kidnapping, whether it's the success of my book, whether it's the success of my story getting across to people, my father's story getting across to people, my business's story getting across to people, the foundation of it is my mother, and her strength, and her patience, and her grace. By it. She is also the most graceful woman that we meet. And I think these qualities guided us through a very difficult 14, 15 years. I came back in 2016 and things were better, and then Imran Khan started his dharna and the economy collapsed. Then when Imran Khan came into power, there was a sense of optimism that the economy would pick up again, and COVID hit. So and then just like I said, the journey just never stops. The problems just never stop, and you have to keep evolving. But I'll be honest with you, when I came back in 2016, I realized that my kidnapping not affecting me and my torture not affecting me is the least of my worries. Can you imagine? This is a worry on its own, but getting your hands back in a position where you can orchestrate or play, orchestrator is impossible. It's so difficult because the world never stops for anyone.
Exactly.
And when you're 5 years behind in a rat race, because this world that we live in is a rat race, 5 years, you never realize it when you look at it from a point of privilege. I'm Salman Taseer's son, I went to a good school, I went to a good university, I got my good job. and then you lose that job and you come back and everyone in that job is 5 years more advanced than you. And the business cycles of the world have changed. The way that economies function have changed. Business models have changed. Work hours have changed. Offices have changed. Faces have changed. Everything is gone. Affiliations are gone.
Because nobody genuinely cares about what happened.
No.
The world doesn't stop.
Yeah, the world doesn't. It's the care part is a bit tough because I always give my own example of when my father died. I still remember the first time I went out with my friends and had a laugh, and maybe it was 2 weeks after my father died. 5, 6 of my buddies came and picked me up and said, "इसको बाहर लेके जाओ यार," और मुझे हंसाया और मुझे गिल्ट फील हो क्योंकि मुझे हमेशा लगता था कि यार मेरे वालिद साहब ने मेरे लिए तो नहीं, he didn't die of old age, he didn't die for me, he didn't die for my sister, he didn't die for my brother, he didn't die for my businesses, he didn't die for money, he didn't die for power, he went and gave his life for some poor innocent woman. That creates a self-doubt and anger. They're all very harsh questions that you ask of yourself, and it takes years for these questions to be answered in a manner that you get closure.
That you get a closure.
So when I say the world doesn't stop, it's no one's fault. It doesn't stop for anyone. It's not about caring, because I'll tell you, I was always my mother's first priority. पहले वो किडनैपर का पहली कॉल पे तो नहीं उठाते थे क्योंकि वो एक इंटेलिजेंस ट्रिगर होता था, फिर वो जूम इन करते हैं, मतलब लॉक इन करते हैं, फिर सेकंड कॉल पे उठाते हैं। मगर ये नहीं कभी हुआ कि मेरी वालदा उधर नहीं थी। और मैं आपको एक और बात बताऊं, एक बार मेरी बुक में भी लिखा हुआ इंसिडेंट, उन्होंने मेरे साइड पे पिस्तौल थी, मेरी वालदा को कह दिया था कि we're going to kill him and we're going to tell you where to pick up the body. And I swear to you, what I saw that day was a soldier of God. And I was with men who claimed to be soldiers of God. But I really, that day, what I saw was a woman with strength and faith that cannot be matched. I've traveled the earth and been to hell and back, and with a gun on my head, and the man holding the gun is a very trigger happy person. He told her 60 million or 4 Arab, whatever the valuation at the time was, now or body. And she just turned to him and she said, "Put my son on the phone." She said, "No one will touch you. I've left you in God's hand. Now give him the phone." And then she told him, she said, "It'll be body for body. You touch my son and you'll take your friends' bodies as well." That's the first time I realized कि पाकिस्तान जब मुझे इन्होंने उठाया तो इन्होंने इनके बंदे उठाया। तो my personal tragedy, there were a lot of nights that were awful and lonely and sad. And if there was ever a morning where I got to speak to her, she would give me strength for many more of those nights, because I knew what I had to go through, endure in terms of longevity, and when this would end, there was no finish line. But the strength to go through those nights in the future came from that one occasional talk with her, where all she would tell me is that no one will touch him. It comes, I don't know where it comes from. I hope I can, as a father, I hope I can put I can give that hope and that strength to my.
It takes a lot of courage and faith.
And she unfortunately had the worst kind of training, because when she was a very young woman, my father decided to give her. She was 21. My father was in his late 30s, and he decided that, listen, this work and money, life is not for me. That was the first time he decided it, by the way. And he came to this country and he started fighting a dictator. And you're young guys and you've seen actually what happens when you take these institutions on, and to the people that take these institutions on, and how many people you kind of have faith in that quickly overnight sign apology notes and run home, and who are the ones that stay. My father was one of those guys. He stayed till the end. And so that was this poor woman's training of having faith and patience that what he's doing is the right thing. That's tough because you're not doing it yourself, and you've got children that that hang in the balance. There are many nights, there's a law in my family. I mean, we've made it a family law, but हमारी एक लाइन है जो हम एक दूसरे को कहते हैं जब भी कुछ मुश्किल हो जाता है हमारे बहन भाइयों के लिए या मेरी वालदा या मेरे वालिद साहब के लिए, that I am not made from a wood that burns easily. And that was a small note that my father smuggled to my mother when he was 4 murder cases, one of them another terrorism case for trying to blow up the Punjab Assembly. And he was like, यार मैं कितने cases में बचूंगा, ये मुझे they're trying to kill me. they will succeed. And my mother always told him no, they won't. And he came home. So the strength is unparalleled. And if you speak to any employee in this country, in my company, they'll tell you the same. That she is like, वो lonely ocean में एक lighthouse नहीं होता. She's that lighthouse for us. This is not restricted to your professional interaction with her. It stems down to any issue that you may have in your life. That office door is open to give you hope. It's a unique, there's very few places and very few people I think that anybody can just go to for optimism and hope and advice for that. By the way, I've seen a lot of PTI leaders, very senior guys, come to ask her कि जो हम जिस सफर पे जा रहे हैं या जाना चाह रहे हैं वो कैसा होगा. Yeah, I'm very serious. I never take names because they deserve credit for their own journeys, not who told advice. Advice is part of how you start any journey. But they wanted to know this road because वो मीडिया में तो कहते हैं पहली बार पर उनको पता है पहली बार नहीं है. They want to know कि sorry.
तो मुझे वो स्टोरी याद आ जाती है विक्टर फ्रैंकल की. Have you read A Man's Search for Meaning?
No.
So basically,
being an author doesn't mean that I'm well read.
Yeah, he was a psychiatrist and a Jew back in Nazi time. But वो shift हो जाते हैं इस camp में. He described his own journey. So the main hypothesis of that book was hope. The prisoners who had a little bit of hope कि कोई मेरा इंतजार कर रहा है पीछे या एक higher meaning जिनकी जिंदगी में था, those are the only ones who survived because जो conditions थी उधर की वो तो इस तरह की थी कि आप
you're not supposed
to stay alive in any.
So this brings me to another question that I have. So your book, A Lost Memo of Faith, Family and Five Visitors Captivity. So as I'm reading through the book, कहीं जगह पर I stopped and realized कि यार and I wrote it down. I'll ask this to you. Okay, how do you see that so many times right there in front of you, staring at your eyes, and still believe and still believe कि नहीं यार मैं come out of this alive.
No, that's not how it works. Because you're like, oh, I came out of it alive. Okay, that's it's tough, man. Like the thing about I don't know if it's like there were moments that I've seen death in front of my eyes, but I would say 99% of death hit me and I survived. You know what I mean? And I was like, "Ye kya hua? Bach gaye." That was 99% of it. You never see where it's coming from. You're dealing with modern weaponry. I remember पहली जो मेरी drone strike हुई थी, I have tinnitus. I have a ringing in my ear. And it's because of all these bombs and all these wonderful places that I spent so much time in. But basically, it happened, and then many days later, you kind of realize, oh my God, I'm the only survivor, and you don't really see it happen. You're in a room, you're having a normal call, and suddenly it's all gone. But say if that's 99% of the journey and there are 100 stories like that, yeah man, like there are also, I mean, एक वक्त था जब हम पाकिस्तान से अफगानिस्तान जा रहे थे और मैं पीछे देख रहा था और सिर्फ बमबारी हो रही थी और वो जो आवाज़ें होती हैं कि अगर 2-3 जेट कंटिन्यूस बमबारी कर रहे हैं ना, it's like a screech and it's a very empty sky and a very lonely earth and I can't explain that tear. It's deafening and it's आपके like you've got goosebumps and stuff. Like I get that stuff when I'm talking about it, and there's too much death involved. Yes. People are dying and dying and dying, and you're actually just wondering when will this stop. And then there was that one time that जब तालिबान ने हमला किया था, there though, I mean, literally bullets were inches, it was inches and bullets. I don't know how to even say this in a philosophical way, but yeah, you just I have one thing that I really believe in, and that is मेरे वालिद साहब भी ये कहते थे, मैं आयतुल कुर्सी और अपने कोल पढ़ता हूँ और मैं हर वक्त ये करता हूँ और हर सिचुएशन में ये करता हूँ और I actually believe कि यार अब I've come to a point in my life where I just believe कि जो भी होना है वो बेहतरी के लिए होना है.
And I think Kursi protects your soul. That's what I heard in one of your podcasts, right?
It does. Well, this is my understanding.
Yes.
People have different understanding from what they get from the Quran and from its surahs, but I found the Quran in a very hopeless and a very hard place.
Yes. So I have a question about that. So, ये तो एक हमें एक understanding is you spent 5 years in an active war zone basically. So there was a lot happening, bullets passing right through your ears. But the time you spent in say confinement where you were alone, lonely. I remember listening to one of your earlier podcasts where you say that when you were lonely, the biggest enemy of you was yourself, your past self, the 2011 Shahbaz Taseer, the memories of you being in Lahore and having spending all that time with your friends and family was the biggest fear that you had. And at that time, how much did religion or how much did Quran help you out? Because I know you started reading a lot of Quran during that time.
So obviously part of my problem with Shahbaz Taseer was that he was basked in a lot of privilege, which wasn't his fault. And that privilege makes you dumb to some of the harsh realities that I had to face. And what the Quran did was it actually explained how simple and beautiful life really is when you break it down. And when you put all of these things, you open them and you look at life, how simple it is. It's nice to sleep in a big bed, and it's nice to have luxury and convenience. But it's harder to be fulfilled and happy in a very, very hard place. To be content, and I think that's what the Quran did for me. A lot of what I was telling you about the rat race and the worries in life and the never-ending cycle, I think there was a relief that wasn't there, and that this light could enter so easily. And I wonder who I would be without it today. Whenever I have a difficult time, no technology or money or contact gives me faith. Or my mother is a mechanism of it, but my faith is the most important thing that I have. It's saved me. It's made me laugh sometimes. It's very difficult and dark and lonely nights, and also made me realize, by the way, that I wasn't so alone. So when I told you my biggest enemy in my loneliness was realizing, my mind is my enemy, the Quran helped me get past that enemy. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy thing. But the best thing that it did for me was, you never want to die. Nobody ever wants to die, and you can never be old enough to not think that I'm too young to die.
Yes.
But I don't know how to explain it to you, and I hope to God you never have it, and nobody has to explain it. But it's like somebody put an arm around me and said, "It's okay. You're gonna be okay. It doesn't matter if it's here or somewhere else, you'll be fine." And nobody could give me that reassurance, and I needed a lot of reassurances. Like I used to look at my kidnapper for a lot of reassurances, and then you kind of realize, I never really speak about this, but Surah Yusuf is my favorite surah in the Quran. It's the most beautiful story. It's the story of people, of something that anyone can relate to. Well, maybe not anyone, but someone who is in a very tough place. He was his father's favorite, the envy of his own siblings, who threw him into a well. And by the way, there's a philosophical meaning behind a well as well, especially when you read them in religious texts. You must always apply philosophy to everything. And a well is a hole. It's a hole. It consumes your being. You can never, very rarely find a way out of a well or a hole. You're supposed to go there to die, which is why his siblings threw him there. And not only did he find a way out, sometimes even the way that you find out, you're like, oh, I'm alive. But imagine being sold into slavery. Then you're sold as a slave to a very respected man whose wife, then there's the favor of the man as well, who freed you and made you a slave in his home and gave you position and gave you this and that and izzat and thoda bahut ye aur apne affairs handle karne ke liye ki you're a slave but you're a respectable person. And then someone who means a lot to him in terms of value, his wife comes for you, but your moral armor doesn't allow this. And so you go to jail and you spend many years there. And then he met two men and he had a dream about. They asked that he could decipher dreams as well. So they asked him, you had these dreams. Can you decide? He told one you'll die and the other that you'll be favored by the king. And the one who was favored by the king, when he was leaving, he made a simple mistake and this is a life lesson, where he asked him for, when the king tumhe appoint kare, don't forget me. And Allah said to him, why did you ask someone else? We've spent all this time together, you and I. And all of this time, you have known that I'm with you. Then why did you ask this man for help? Why? Who is he? What will he do? So he made the man forget and made Yusuf al-Islam spend more time in jail. And then released him eventually and gave him all that izzat that you can't even dream about. And when I read that, I was in such a dark and lonely well that it gave me so much hope, because it was a real human story. It was a real story of resilience, of faith, of patience, of believing in Allah, of his trials. He kept telling Yusuf al-Islam, they didn't put you in jail. I put you in jail. I am testing you. Why did you ask him for help? What did you do? Nothing. Stay long. And so these stories, they gave me so much. I needed resilience. I needed to find things to give me resilience. And my father's story, my family's struggle, my mother's strength, and then the most important thing for me was my faith and the stories of the Quran. And I always tell people, some of us reject going too deep into it because we're like, the Maulvis have bankrupted the religion and distorted it, and I'm not interested. The most beautiful thing about the Quran is it says itself, read this book. You don't need anyone to explain it. No matter what you're going through in life, just open it like this. Don't open a surah or a page, just take the book and open it randomly and just spend 10 minutes reading it and see if your emotion or if your thought was answered. Just try it. And when you're down and you're upset or you're angry, there's no solution. Just open the Quran and read. जितना गुस्सा होएगा उतनी तुम उस आदमी को माफ कर. So you won't believe it. The kind of lessons and it speaks to you. It really it speaks to you. So yeah. So that I was very lucky that I had your first question. How did this business survive? Because of this woman's strength. And how did I survive all these people and then my faith? And I'm so lucky that I found it, because I wonder if you can ever truly, not anyone else, people are much better than me, but I wonder if I continue to live the life that I'd lived if I'd ever find faith.
Adele का गाना मुझे याद आ गया million years ago. Life was a party to be thrown. I think this time you got abducted.
There was no Adele.
There was no Adele, but नहीं there was Adele. वो तो बहुत पुरानी है.
नहीं 11 में नहीं थी, ये तो बाद में आई है कोई मैं जब वापस आया था, I heard a song of hers, and I loved the song. And when I was writing my book, I wrote about the song as well. Because there was a moment in my life while I was kidnapped, I could not explain it. I could not explain that moment verbally myself. And then I heard this song, and while I was listening to the song, I was kind of transported back into that moment, not in a PTSD way, but in almost like a vision and a reminder. And I realized how deep that moment really was for me, and how this song is so connected to it. क्या था वो hello from the other side.
अच्छा ठीक है। बिलियनियर्स को इस तरह मुझे याद है कि
ये उसकी पहली एल्बम थी ना, hello from the other side.
पहली
क्या ये 13 में आई थी? 2013 में। मैं 11 में गायब हो गया था यार, इंस्टाग्राम नहीं था।
तो आप आई थिंक वेकेशन पे जा रहे थे उस टाइम।
Maybe it was an abduction.
Obviously not that, but I think you told us.
Yeah, I actually
you were going to LA.
Yeah, so the crazy thing is, I came to office to pick up my tickets.
यही कोई office था?
नहीं, it was across the road. Really called building. So this one I've taken as my head office now. We're working on 2-3 other projects. I think the head office will change. My brother will go insane. He loves this place. He actually built this office. So he's like got a personal attachment to it. I'm building another one. So let's see how the war between us ends. But I shifted from there. Actually, I think my family shifted from there before I came back. I moved into the Fortress Stadium one. When I came back, that was my head office.
Oh, okay.
So it was on MM Adam when I got kidnapped. Fortress back on MM Adam. Yeah.
Fortress space.
The one in Fortress Stadium. Yeah.
अच्छा, अब थोड़ा मैं इस तरफ आता हूँ कि since you came back, you've actively been involved in your family business.
Yeah.
And अभी हमने बिल्डिंग भी देखी है और you've taken it to another level.
This building is my brother.
This building
This
is
building is
what,
my brother.
especially whatever followed after Pace, and how you've transformed it. I had a question where I've been seeing that spirit in you, where you are actively concerned about what's happening in the country. You want a better Pakistan. You want the politics of this country to go in a positive direction, but at the same time, you are very against going directly into politics. पिछली बार मैंने आपसे पूछा था कि bureaucracy join कर लेनी चाहिए फिर, but still you preferred getting into this over that. So can you talk a little about that?
Way of public service delivery थोड़ा different है.
Way of service delivery तो बिल्कुल different है, लेकिन ये नॉर्मल इंसान को कभी नहीं समझ आ सकती कि आप एक entrepreneurial venture चलाते हुए किस तरह सर्व कर सकते हो लोगों को और अपनी कंट्री को.
Government is like a business as well. So is bureaucracy. So is the military. Military में maybe there's more room for new faces that came from nowhere, through that system. Maybe even in the bureaucracy, actually, usually bureaucrats want better for their children. They certainly ensure that their children get better through their years of service. That's not a dig, just the truth of the system of these three institutions: politicians, bureaucrats, and military men. How do you sit with any of these three across the table on an even level? What do you guys think?
Maybe
Do you think
diamond of the letter in one of these three.
that's one way? How
Yeah.
easy would that entry be? How easy do you think it would be to become a politician? Like, say, in the last 50 years, is Imran Khan the only politician that came from no political background and made himself into a political face? Even he, if we were having an intellectually honest conversation, didn't do that without the help of
Yes.
certain institutions. before the help of those institutions, his credibility and honesty didn't matter to the public. He just couldn't be a serious politician. In my father's life, he was a very senior politician. He would laugh like he was a PTI बेचारे तो एक सीट पे अगर उस बेचारे इमरान खान बेचारे कहते थे, and then one person puts their arm around you and takes you there. But this is now one person, right? And again, in the bureaucracy, it's very difficult. And the legal fraternity as well, lawyers के बच्चे lawyers होते हैं, lawyers होते हैं, you know. हर चीफ जस्टिस का बेटा अभी बहुत बड़ा वकील है, सही है. और मेथड ऑफ एंट्री बहुत कंट्रोल है. फौज में भी बाय द वे थोड़ा सा है, although General Bajwa, you know, he was an orphan, so he's the chief of army staff, so it shows you an orphan from nowhere, you know, becoming the chief of army staff. So yes, there are arguments for entry points in all of them, but entrepreneurs and businessmen in this country, especially in this country, sit on an even or above level to these guys. They make policy for you, with you. With you, for you is better. The legal fraternity as well. Their cash comes from you. They're bankrupt. The government of Pakistan is bankrupt. The bureaucracy of Pakistan is bankrupt. The judiciary of Pakistan is bankrupt. They function on the money of businessmen and entrepreneurs, or loans from the IMF. The government is bankrupt.
Yes.
If they need to privatize an institution, they need businessmen. If they need to sell a government asset to function and survive, they need businessmen. If they are passing policy, expanding, for example, central business district, Lahore mein bana rahe, spending billions and billions and billions of rupees making this. Who do you think is going to run it? We are. Why? Because we run things. And so when you're running things and when you go in, what do you think the bureaucrats and the politicians and the policy makers do? They sit on a level where you converse with them. And they're like, sir, what can we do for you? And then you get policy passed. Now, as you grow in that ladder, what else can you do? You don't be so aggressive and ruthless and blind to the country that has given you this privilege. And so if you're in a position where you can employ 10 to 20,000 people, and I'm not talking about factory workers, I'm talking about executives, like say take MCB or Mia Mancha. Let's take Mia Mancha. Mia Mancha doesn't come from a military background, political background, bureaucratic background. He comes from a businessman. Now he's a businessman in Pakistan, legitimate. Okay, there's no theft involved here. There's no crookedness involved here. Mia Mancha could be the best finance minister this country has, best minister of industry this country could have, best prime minister this country could have, or the best privatizer. He could take any field. He would be the best at it because of his business acumen, right? And he could successfully do any of these projects and give them to the public. Now, the fact that he doesn't do it shows you that the people who are doing it are at his behest. If you look at the biggest, they put all these cases on Imran Khan. I say all of them. I was a big advocate of the Tosha Khana. By the way, I did a podcast with my friend Vajahat, Vaj bro. मेरा तो बहुत अच्छा दोस्त है. So we did a podcast together. And उधर मैं तोशा खाना पे बहुत गुस्सा था. और मैंने कहा कि यार अगर आप एक ओथ लेते हो कि मैं इस सीट से बेनिफिट नहीं करूंगा, तो आप कैसे ये घड़ियां लेते हो और FBR से वैल्यू करा के 10% पे खा जाते हो? ये तो मतलब आपने इस सिस्टम को इस पे थूक दिया. सही है. I've evolved from that opinion. I think it's not a big deal. Anybody would do it. If you give anyone that opportunity, they should do it, and they should do it. You know, they should do it. Public exercise से पैसे निकालने से बेहतर है गिफ्ट निकालना. Just don't make policy because of those. So anyways, the Tosha Khana thing is irrelevant. The case is insulting. It's insulting to Pakistanis. I have a daughter, I have a wife, I have a sister, I have a mother. This is disgusting. Okay, I have employees who are women who work for me that I think of as sister and children and brother, you know, mothers, and I look at them, my people who work for me in these roles, and I think the case is disgusting. I'm glad that a lot of politicians said it too, but it doesn't matter because it's there. The only case that is real that will incriminate him is his transaction with who? Malik Riaz. Who's Malik Riaz? He's a businessman. The Prime Minister of the country gave $190 million of the government's back to a private businessman. Do you understand the kind of control that I'm talking about that you could potentially have? If you were a Mark Zuckerberg of Pakistan, if you were a Ambani of Pakistan, and you could invent the next Facebook, who's saying you can't?
Yes.
And everybody told Facebook and Twitter, this is not real, but they did it. And there are many people in Pakistan that are doing it. Many. We just did a podcast with that young kid who's making millions of rupees a month, selling, 13, 14-year-old boy who's been doing it for 4-5 years. I'm just saying that this is a 250 million people country. That's the kind of power that business will give you. Your product will explode. And as you do well here, you'll realize there's a certain strength that comes.
But don't you think, Shahbaz bhai, कि अगर इसमें the names like Mansha and Malik Raz, these are just a couple of people who can sit on a table with the government and look at
There's names, lists of names, and just look at your federal ministries, look at your senators. Who do you think these people are? Look at a lot of your industry ministers. Look who's just been made your finance minister. Is he a politician? No,
he's not, but he has background and experience in the banking sector.
How does he going to push policy? Well, the CEO of HBL can push policy.
Yes, but that's because of his experience, because of his knowledge, not because he's super rich.
No.
Yes.
Entrepreneurship, business. You have to go business, develop. I gave you examples of. I didn't give you Sethon examples, right? I gave you examples of self-made men in this country. Take the guys who made the guys behind Zanin. Take the guys behind Daftar Khan. They don't come from privilege. They're not slaves. But now, have you heard of the Special Technology Zone?
Yes,
which is a tax benefit.
Yes,
Who do you think got that passed? Who do you think was behind the conception of bills like this? You know what I mean? So, there's so much you can do now. Now, let me explain something to you. There's something that I have done as a group from 2011 till today, which is support minorities through our media businesses, through our real estate business, whatever we can do, wherever we can push policy, whoever we can sit with, whatever we can do, condemn what happened to my father and help the underprivileged in this country. These are two things. You want to work with me, this is the page that we meet on, right? Look at where the country was in 2011, look at where it is now. If you had told me in 2011, go and speak at LUMS about the blasphemy law, I wouldn't do it. Today, we have this conversation in LUMS where you all are agreeing with me. Before, you'd be scared to host these conferences. This is progress. This has not been done because of politicians. This has been done because your business community, your civil society has seen a problem and addressed it in every part of it, wherever they can. And you know who enables them? Businessmen. No, politicians and bureaucrats and military. And I'm talking about and what we're fighting against. The enablers of them are against them. So when we sit with them and they want us to pick up CBD and they want us to develop these economic zones, and they have to do things for us. And this is what I try to tell young people in Pakistan. I'm not trying to tell you to be arrogant. I'm trying to tell you that there is a power. Don't go for this system. Break this system. Make it work for you. And the only way you make it work for you is you're Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk. You can. You guys, by the way, you guys are the these guys also went to Ivy Leagues and in the US. Not Elon, but the rest of them were Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, blah blah blah, right? And they dropped out and they formed these. Well, you're going to a college that's giving you the skill set to develop the same thing. And by the way, a lot of the people that will come up in these fields, in the tech fields, and they'll be coming from LUMS and GIK and some of these top institutions, and they'll be revolutionaries. They'll be young boys who started in their. By the way, I have another friend, Popcorn Studios. He's now, he's working at a tier below. He's not giving you the collab service or the Daftar Khan service. He's coming in for the young entrepreneur who just literally basta pehn ke shuru. He's expanding at a rate that's unparalleled. Self-made from nothing. We attend these Future Fest forums, these tech forums in Pakistan. You should see the people that are bringing their companies there. They're coming from villages and they've come up with ideas that are now making them millions. they forced the government of Pakistan to look at this sector, to start recognizing it, and what do you think will happen when they set to make policy on these sectors? The owners of the sector will work directly with bureaucrats and politicians. They'll be working for them. So this is what I tell young people in Pakistan. ये सियासत और इनको देख के फूल ना हो, इससे दूर रहो, पीछे जाओ. Be the orchestrator, be the puppeteer.
Fair enough.
Not that I'm an orchestrator or puppeteer. कल वीगो आगे मैं तुम लोगों को जनरल एक लाइफ प्लान दे रहा हूँ.
General life plan, लेकिन obviously now that we know this, there's a wider perspective that not everybody sees, because जो direct power के अंदर आपको चीज़ नजर आती है, I think वो ही आप सिर्फ देख रहे हो, especially at this age.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, man, if you talk to the Prime Minister of the country, he'll tell you, but this works for me.
This works for me.
You know, I don't make policy for Shahbaz Taseer. He has to work within my policy. You know, he'll say that. The army chief would laugh at him. He'll be like,
Yes.
policy. Yours or mine?
Because वो Game of Thrones का भी एक scene है जिसमें Cersei Lannister comes in and says, power is power. So no wisdom, no knowledge, nothing else.
लेकिन
Power is
Lannisters क्या थे?
नहीं, but again, see,
They want the coin, right? But look at how that worked out.
Yeah.
But she's right. That kind of,
I mean,
you know.
because बाकी सब चीजें पीछे रह जाती हैं when you're trying to put your foot down.
By the way, a lot of people don't want this kind of. They like, you know, we like more subtle means of just surviving and living.
Yes,
We don't need to be in these corridors.
Exactly.
That's fine too. You know, but I'm talking about if you're actually really like, you're like, you know, I want to go into politics to make a difference. I want to go into the bureaucracy to make a difference. I want to go into the military to make a difference. That one I won't argue with. If you can go over there, you really can make a difference. But this is why I tell you, but there's a fourth field, which is more rewarding in terms of at least, yeah, your families are secure, your reputations are secure, you know.
Yes,
I told you about that off as well. There's that issue that comes.
It's been the only reason why people are a bit scared and skeptical of getting into this fourth form of getting into power, basically, because it's little, well, not little, it's a lot uncertain. Because
It is.
if you
It's
get
also undeveloped.
undeveloped as well, but
So
I'd
where
say
you got
it's
cons,
indirect.
yeah, no, you know, there is a con. That is that
Big con.
but you have to look at the pro, which is that
Pro.
this market is untapped, it's undeveloped. If I can get in there, if I can get something that I'm really passionate about and grow, 250 million people, half of Europe doesn't have that population.
yes, big market.
You've got a big market to provide services to sell products to. You know, आप अपने market पे you can make a killing. And you want to be powerful in this market. You want to make change in this market. By the way, the other thing that your business does, that it allows, your own businesses will allow you to do, is whether 10,000 people work for you or 3 people work for you, वो तुम्हारे नज़रिए में भी तुम्हारे नज़रिए के लिए भी काम करेंगे. तुम कैसे आदमी हो, तुम क्या चाहते हो, वो वर्कफोर्स भी तुम्हारी उसको देख के इंस्पायर. अगर तुम अच्छे आदमी नहीं हो तो एनीवे तुम कुछ वो तुमसे इंस्पायर नहीं होंगे. मगर 2 बंदे से, 3 बंदे से, 4 बंदे से, मैं तो कहता हूँ एक बंदा अगर आपको देख के कहना मैंने इसकी तरह होना है और इसकी तरह काम करना है, ये आपकी जिंदगी की सबसे बड़ी जीत है कि दूसरा भी ये कहे. You know, that is an unfair number that I said. Because unfortunately, the factories or that's why I told you I'm not talking about factory, I'm talking about executives. You know, if you have 5,000 executives that work at you, and their family, you're responsible for their families and their children, imagine how far your thought can go. I'm telling you, when my father died, people in my own company came to me. People in my own company came and said कि इनको ऐसी बात नहीं करनी चाहिए. I said कैसी बात? I said, कैसी बात? These conversations, convincing, being timid while facing harsh debates, being educated and calm while in harsh circumstances. I used to debate with my kidnappers. You know, मैं उनको चुप कराता था अपनी बात पे. तब मैंने realize ये बात कि अगर मैं इधर बैठ के कह सकता हूँ कि तुम कर तो रहे हो जो कर रहे हो, मगर ये गलत है.
Thank you so much.
We plan on keeping it short as well. इसके we will keep uploading it in bits and pieces. तो वो छोटे short clips on social media, YouTube.
Short.
Short, खासी short होगी वैसे.
Well done.
So